Today's video is a pear, Tarte Tatin, as the title of the video here says. Normally, this is a French dessert, of course, you can tell by the name of it, I guess. Normally in France it is made with apples. I have a friend who lives not too far, or lived not too far from Paris. She's had to move for health reasons in the past year, but I've had it several times when she has made it. But this one calls for pears, so we've done a pear Tarte Tatin. There's a layer of pastry down below there, if you probably can't see it. And this has been out of the oven now for, well, at least half an hour. It's still warm, but has cooled down. And I really like that. The nice caramel. For spices, it has a bit of ginger and a bit of cardamom in it. Lots of butter, both in the caramel and in the crust. And the nice flavor of the pears. Very good. If I must say so myself. Not very modest, is it? Well, if that interests you, continue watching and I'll show you the process for making it, which isn't all that difficult. Well, as you've just seen, I guess, what we're going to make is a traditional French dessert in a non-traditional manner. As I already said, Tarte Tatin is usually made with apples. This particular recipe calls for pears. I thought that sounded a little different, so I will give it a try. First we're going to make the crust, and it starts with 180 grams of all-purpose flour, and it says in dry measures that's roughly a cup and a half. A tablespoon of granulated sugar and a half teaspoon of salt. That's 12 grams of sugar and 2 grams of salt. What am I going to do with the butter? Oh, the butter's in the fridge. Right back. After I diced the butter, I wanted it to stay nice and cold, so I put it back in the refrigerator and forgot to bring it out. 10 tablespoons of unsalted butter. That's 5 ounces or 142 grams. And I have diced it up into some kind of cubes. I don't know what the measurements might be, but just getting it into smaller pieces anyway. Now this gets pulsed until the butter is in smaller pieces, mixed in quite well with the other dry ingredients. Yeah, that's good. Some people say it has a texture of oatmeal. Whatever, it's the butter is in fine little teeny pieces, and now you add ice water, a tablespoon at a time, until you have a dough. What does it say? Somewhere in the recipe here it gave a big wide range of 4 to 9 tablespoons, so that's quite a range. I'll start with a couple. No, you don't want the ice cubes in there, just the ice water, and I have had ice floating in this cup of water now for 10 to 15 minutes, so it's nice and cold. That's 2. We'll go with 2 more. Just test that. Yeah, that comes together pretty nicely. I think I'll just add one more tablespoon. And now this comes out and goes in the refrigerator to chill before you roll it out. I'll show you what I do next here. There'll be a link down below to the recipe, which is online. But it is not a Martha Stewart recipe, but what I'm doing now is a trick that I learned from Martha Stewart from watching her television programs. Turn the dough, the pie crust, whatever, out onto just a sheet of plastic wrap. And this is to avoid overworking the dough. Most recipes would tell you to knead the dough into a ball on a floured surface, well, that adds more flour. So this is what Martha does, and I think it works quite well. I have to get it a little rounder before I put it in the fridge, so I'm going to want it round. Okay, and there is our crust ready to go in the fridge for at least 30 minutes. Well, for the next part, preparing the pears, first thing you need is the juice of 1 lemon. I love this old juicer, which I think, if I remember rightly, I bought in someone's yard sale many years ago. Don't know if they're still available or not, but you get all of the juice out when you press down with that thing. And the purpose of the lemon is just to keep the sliced up pears from going brown. And here's one of my pet peeves, if I can still find one. I left one, I think. Maybe I didn't. Took them all off, I guess. Every piece of fruit, for some reason now, has to have a sticky on it that tells you what it is. I know it's so the clerks can identify it easier at the checkout and whatever, but nevertheless it annoys me that for some reason every apple, pear, or banana, whatever you buy, has got a sticky label on it. 800 grams of pear is what you require, and they say 4 to 5 pears, various kinds of pears. These are Bartlett. This gizmo takes the core out quite nicely and leaves you with that. And I think I would further divide those into thinner slices. Yeah, probably get about 3 slices out of each one of those sections. And get them right into the lemon juice. Well, I'll bring you back once I have finished preparing my pears. Well, I went with 4 pears. I had 5 or 6 here, I guess, but I only used 4 of them. And the lemon juice certainly seems to be doing its work. They're not even beginning to turn brown at all. And pears, like apples, will oxidize very quickly if they don't have something on them to keep them from turning brown. After I used this thing, I thought perhaps I'm going to get some questions as to what that is and where you would get it. Available at any, like Walmart or in Canada, Canadian Tire, places like that, I'm sure. If you're looking for it online, I suspect it would be probably called an apple corer, although it might be called a pear corer. I don't know. It works very well on either one. I think it works better on pears, actually, because the fruit is softer and it'll go down through easier. But it made slick work of getting the pears cored anyway, and then I sliced each one of the sections into 3 slivers. So we'll now prepare the sauce in the bottom of the pan, the caramelized sauce. Now it's time to caramelize the pears. The ingredients are 2 ounces, 57 grams of butter, unsalted butter, it say here for sugar? A half a cup of granulated sugar, which is 99 grams. Pinch of cinnamon. So I'm using a quarter teaspoon and roughly half filling it for my pinch. And a pinch of cardamom. Same thing, roughly an eighth of a teaspoon is what I'm using. Now this gets stirred constantly until it begins to caramelize. It's going to be a while because my butter is very cold and just starting to melt. But I'll bring you back several times during the process maybe. Once we get the butter melted, it will then start to caramelize. And it said a cast iron skillet, which is what I'm using there. I'm trying to find the dimensions that they recommended. A 10 to 11 inch skillet. Well, where are you measuring, top or bottom? This is roughly 10 across, but at the bottom it's 9 inches. So I have another one that's larger. It's 10 across the bottom and 11 or 12 across the top, but decided to go with this one. Quite sure it'll work quite well. Cast iron skillet works well because after with the pears caramelized, this goes in the oven, so you wouldn't want anything that has a handle that would melt or be ruined in the oven. I'll bring you back in a few minutes. As you can see where this is starting to caramelize, you don't want it to burn. Turning the heat down to low. Adding in the pears, trying not to add any of the lemon juice that's gone to the bottom of this. Okay. This gets stirred for 10 to 15 minutes, low to medium heat, so the pears soften. Some of these pears were relatively ripe and the other ones weren't. I don't know why all I ever find in stores now are green pears. Bought these a couple of days ago and they did ripen up some at home here. This will cook down for 10 to 15 minutes on a low heat, stirring it frequently. While the pears are bubbling away on low heat, the oven is preheating to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And now I'm going to try to roll the pastry out into roughly a 10-inch diameter. And another thing I'm doing here again, instead of adding more flour and doing it on a board, to make sure that no more flour is incorporated, I'm going to roll it out between two sheets of parchment paper. I'll bring you back and show you the finished product. Well, that's roughly 10 inches, not exactly round. I'm not sure what happened there. It must have got some water on it or something. But you don't have to be all that fussy with this because this is going to be the bottom crust. You won't see it at all once the Tarte Tatin comes out of the oven. I'm going to slide that back in the refrigerator to chill it again. Pears have been cooking for about 12 minutes. I've shut the heat off. Now the pastry goes down in here. Here's where it's a little bit on the forgiving side. Where it is too large, I will just take a paring knife and cut it off. And then it goes in the 375-degree oven for 30 minutes. And I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. It was in for 35 minutes. Took that long to get a little bit of brown on the surface there, if that's showing, I hope so. And as you can see, some of the caramel sauce has come up over the edges, which isn't too much of a concern. Now it cools for 10 minutes before you try the death-defying feat of turning it out onto a tray. So I'll bring you back at that point. Well, here goes nothing. It has rested for 10 minutes. Now I will endeavor to flip it. You want a tray that has a lip. This has got a lip around it, and I think it's roughly 12 inches going over the 10-inch skillet. I felt something let go in there. I'll leave it upside down for just a bit, so anything that is still attached to the bottom, give it a chance to come down. So far there isn't a great deal of the caramel coming outside there, but and I'm a bit off center. It's not perfectly centered on the tray, but you do want something that has a lip so that you won't end up with hot caramel sauce all over everything. Come back in a minute or two and I'll remove the skillet. I think that's long enough. I just waited a couple of minutes. It's cool enough now that I think I can take it off with asbestos hands. Some still in the pan that I will take out. Not exactly perfect, but it smells good and I think it's going to be quite tasty. Well, this has to cool for quite a bit before you can cut it. I was a bit off with my positioning on the tray. It'd be much more Julia Child or Martha Stewart if it was perfectly centered. But I'm anxious to try that and see what it tastes like. I hope you'll give it a try, and thank you very much for watching.